meeting to order. Mr. Niles, do you have any comments?
Nope, just want to welcome everybody and here today and for the third one of these. I know we're not going to get everything finished up today, but we have, by request of the Budget Committee, a couple presentations that I think you'll enjoy. We'll hear a little bit about the secondary counseling program here, as well as a little bit about the athletics and activities programs here. So I'll stop talking and leave time for everybody else who came to hear.
Okay, so Ms. Joe Shea and Ms. Caitlin Javere, you're on.
Okay, so I know Joe is getting a sheet that we're going to share with you all. She'll be back with that momentarily. But I'm Caitlin Javere. I'm one of the counselors here. I do half-time guidance and half-time student assistance program counselor, so we'll talk to you a little bit today about what we do. And then once Joe comes back with the sheets, you can have a better idea on paper as well. But most of our focus is on meeting with students and offering counseling to them individually or in groups. We do that by request of the student themselves coming in. If a teacher comes to us and says, oh, we have concerns about this student, we meet with those students as well. Or if a parent calls, we will meet with their student that they have concerns about. We also meet with students regarding academics, so whether they're struggling in a class or seniors that may be struggling and need a little bit of help getting their grades passing so they can graduate. We do a lot with scheduling, so regarding the master schedule, we help create it to what it looks like when classes are happening, who's teaching which classes, and then we take that master schedule and do all of the background work that needs to happen in our student information system, which is PowerSchool. So we put in to what it would look like in the computer and then run it so that each student has a schedule. We then go through and work with the students to make sure they are in the classes that they need and to make sure that they are still on track to graduate. We also do grading, so that involves keeping track of where students are at with their grades. We distribute all progress and report cards. We also help teachers if they are having trouble with their grade books where they keep track of their grades. We essentially are the support system minus the IT department when it comes to teachers in their grade books. I'm trying to think of what else we do. We do a lot with seniors, well, in each grade level, but I'll start with seniors. So seniors, we meet with, well, mostly Joe meets with them about college and career, like moving on from high school. We, letters of recommendation happens, uploading their transcripts and any supporting documents they may need. We offer times to, we meet with the seniors, so we meet with them during the school day to talk about what their senior year is going to look like and what they need to do. We also meet with parents as well regarding the college senior timeline during the year, and then a financial aid night that we coordinate with an organization that comes in and talks to them about financial aid. Juniors, and we also take the seniors to UNH for a college fair there, and we also coordinate a mini college fair for juniors and seniors here as well. Juniors, we meet with them as a class and then individually discuss their plans for after high school and develop their senior year schedules with them. And then in grades 8 through 12, we coordinate the New Hampshire Scholars Program. So students can commit to being a New Hampshire Scholar, which means they take on a more rigorous class schedule as they progress through to their senior year. We also liaise with the Educational Talent Search Program, which is a program that's offered for students who meet certain criteria. So it could be a student whose parents did not go to college, a single parent household, if they're on free or reduced lunch. And then we schedule the time and space for the representative that comes in, and we assist with recruiting students and scheduling the students weekly to meet with them. We also support the standardized testing that happens throughout the year, so we help with the scheduling part and the rosters that need to be created for the standardized testing. And I think that's, so you guys can look through this. We serve on a number of committees as well, so we're on the leadership team. The 7th and 8th grade teams meet to discuss how to help students who are struggling, so we serve on that as well. The teacher and student collaboration team, the NIA self-reflection committee team, the district mental health team, the student support team that meets weekly, and then the alcohol, tobacco, and other drugs committee meetings that we attend to be another. So that meeting has different organizations and sectors that represent the town of Littleton. So we go as a school section. And then during the year, we offer different evening presentations such as 7th grade orientation, back to school parent night. So it would be for 8 through 12 students and parents. Junior parent night, senior parent night, financial aid night for seniors, St. Paul summer program information night. So students who are invited, they get to hear about their St. Paul summer program and kind of enhance their studies that way. And then class night, which revolves around scholarships. So I threw a lot of information at you, but if you guys have any questions, we're happy to answer them. But this sheet is basically as comprehensive as we tried to make it. There's little things that happen throughout the day that we also do as well. It really varies day by day, so.
Hey, I know that every day is different.
Yeah.
How many one-on-ones do you have with students during the year or the week? How many would that be, would you think?
Yep, so right now I will tell you I have about 10 students who are specifically scheduled to meet with one-on-one during the week that have been referred to me as, okay, you need to meet with the student because something's going on. And then I say, oh, I need to meet with you every week to make sure that we're staying on top and keep staying on track.
Are there scholastic progress? Are there emotional?
Either and all. Some of them are referred to me for scholastic, and then some of them are referred to me for social emotional mental health support. But I will tell you, I probably see on average 6 to 8 students on top of that each day.
Each day.
Yeah.
What is your biggest challenge?
My biggest challenge is probably time management. So,
That's mine too.
right. So in terms of like making sure I meet all of the students' needs on top of being pulled into meetings, having to do all of this other stuff that needs to get done during the year, I don't always have time for students as much as I would like to.
Okay, next question.
Yes.
Honest question, which I'm sure will be, how many meetings do you attend a week? Or say
Better yet is to look back, how many meetings did you attend this week so far?
So far, probably 10 to 12,
So in a school year, you might attend 100 to 150 meetings.
probably. Yeah, that's pretty easy to say, yeah.
Probably double that because it's 36 weeks of school.
Yes. So it's quite, yes.
Yeah. And some of them are absolutely necessary, and like parents come in and we talk with them about their child. And not that they're not all necessary, but it's overwhelming sometimes with the amount of meetings.
And that's, you're not the first teacher, guidance counselor, psychologist that I've spoken to in the last 15 years. Every one of them says the same thing.
Yeah.
And that's the message to the school board. Our guidance counselors, our psychologists, our behavior specialists spend more time in their meetings, I bet you, than they do with students. And your focus is students, not meetings. Now, as another soapbox, industry has proved it's a waste of time to have meetings. I don't know how it is for y'all, but most people do not know how to do meetings. And that's why I asked about the meeting situation, because I've heard it from all of my colleagues in education. They despise meetings. It's a waste of time. I'm not saying that's what it is here, but that's what I hear all over the country.
It's worth the discussion, that's right.
Okay, so that, I'll get off my soapbox. Thank you so much. Sounds like a very busy person.
I got one question.
Yes.
You meet with students that are referred to you by the AD or someone else.
Yeah.
you meet with students that come to you and say, I'd like a little assistance here.
Yep.
Is there a group of students that the counselors never meet with, that just get completely ignored from the school system? Not, I don't say mean ignored, but they don't come to you, they don't get referred to you, they feel like they could handle it on their own. Is there a group of students, or is everybody required at some point?
Not everyone is required, but I will say being in the school that we are, and because we are a small school, the teachers tend to notice those students, and the teachers will refer those students to us. So they won't come to us, but the teachers will say, hey, you probably should check in with this student, and then we'll follow up, and whether it's a one-time meeting or a continuous meeting, we determine with the student. But I feel like between the teachers and para support and administration, there are very few kids that are not met with in some capacity.
With our scheduling protocol, I would say almost at least every year a student is met with a guidance counselor. At least once.
Okay.
And those are just the few that wouldn't meet with us otherwise.
Yeah.
As they go up in grades, they meet with you more often, depending upon how they're scheduling college and career choices.
But there are some that could possibly get through and you never talk to them, never see them. Okay.
I mean, I'd
Because
like
there's
to
no
think not,
there's
but
just no
probably.
mandatory requirement.
Yeah, it's not, no. Just because it's not feasible to meet with every student each year with the amount of students that we have. So we try to get to them all as best we can.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
What number, or like how many students, how many groups do you sort of facilitate, like on a weekly basis, if you're doing that type of counseling in a group, like you mentioned? What-
Yeah. So right now I run a newcomers group, so all students in either 7th and 8th grade or 9 through 12 that are new to the district. So I pull them in and I check in with them, and we kind of make sure everyone's doing okay and transitioning well. And I probably meet with them about every other week.
Okay.
And then I run a leadership group that I run about every other week as well. The groups I can do a lot easier this year, I'm finding, because of the task time. It's much easier to pull them in during that 40 minutes and really meet with them. I have so with other types of groups, it's hard because you have to get parental consent most of the time, depending on what it is. So those are a little bit harder to get going. But in the past, I have had some social emotional groups, social skills groups, kind of that stuff. So they usually run about every week for about 6 to 8 weeks. So, yeah.
The reason you need parental permission is?
It depends on the age group and what it is. So if it's just one of those things where they're now requiring that parental permission has to happen, because they don't want the parents necessarily to find out and then get mad because the counselor didn't tell them what was going on. It's one of those sticky areas, yeah.
And this time of year, I have, right from the beginning of the year, a task time weekly to do college admissions application and support
Yeah.
for any of the seniors that, searching out the college, how to apply, how to work the common application and stuff like that. Not only during the task time, but I meet with them anytime they have some free time,
Yeah.
which is frequently these days.
For the
Joe,
seniors?
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, I'm talking.
Is it frequent that the seniors have free time? Is that what you're indicating?
When seniors maybe are caught up in a class
Yeah.
and they're doing some project and they have some time, they'll come down and ask me questions. It depends on their deadlines.
Yeah.
But right now, like tomorrow,
December,
we've got
yeah.
some students this week have brought in, Mr. Shea, can you help me? I've got the December 1st
Right.
deadline. That's only Saturday, so.
That's right. That's normal.
I had like 10 of them in the library yesterday because they don't all fit my office that way, so.
Okay.
With common applications open all around and trying to get fee waivers too for score reports and stuff like that. Some of the stuff you can do in mass, some of the just confidentiality wise you need to do individually.
Yeah.
Joe, how many students do you see on a routine basis or weekly basis, would you say?
Today alone, probably a half a dozen.
Yeah.
Yesterday, it was 10 or 12 seniors at one time, and individually, another 3 or 4 students.
Is that seasonal, or would that be pretty much for the whole school year?
The season changes. I mean, the college application process is in full swing now. We come to the first of the year and we turn the page to scholarship time. And they all start getting their outside scholarships gone and the application process for that. And then our in-house scholarship changes. And I'll pull them in for task time, and so our college support time will change to as a scholarship focus.
Well, as I see what y'all do and what the guidance counselor did for me 55 years ago, it's a totally different ballgame. And we certainly appreciate your work. So you also would attend 150 meetings during the school year, or would you attend 200? No, I'm serious. Would you attend
Well, if there's
200?
180 school days, I'm not sure if there's a day goes by that I don't have one, but probably an average of a day.
So you might attend between 180 and 200 meetings a year.
Some of them are after school though,
Okay.
so we must, say that.
Do you guys go to the IEP and 504 meetings?
We run the 504 meetings.
You run the 504s,
Yeah, so
yeah.
we,
So we did all those.
yeah, so if we are invited to an IEP meeting, so say they feel like schedule change will be happening, then we'll go to those. Those not as much, but when we're invited, we go. But yeah, we run all of the 504 meetings, so we go to all of those.
Unfortunately, I must say, as we talked about testing, that we collaborate with our district curriculum coordinator these days. That would be a little bit of a load off our plate, whereas we used to run the whole deal.
Yep, we did everything.
And working with that is
Yeah.
good. So
Yeah.
working with Mel in that area is going to be a good thing.
Yeah.
Diane extends her apologies for not being here, especially since she's the one who requested this meeting, but it just didn't work out time-wise. But needless to say, she sent the list. So if you would indulge me, I got 4 or 5.
Okay.
Some of which has always been addressed here, but
Okay.
just so I can tell I did my due diligence, if you would. Guidance one of the questions she had was, when do we start guidance? Is it 9th grade, 8th grade, 7th grade?
When?
Yes.
So, so I know that that Lakeway has a counselor down there.
Okay, well, that's,
Yeah, so it really starts in kindergarten.
Okay.
So they would have exposure to a counselor from kindergarten all the way to 12th grade.
except that guidance at that level, I mean, we're not talking about guidance to college or guidance to careers.
You
but-
could, actually, you can start talking with kids in kindergarten about careers and college and what that looks like, and
Bring your parents.
so I'm not sure if the counselor down there is doing that. I don't know what her day-to-day looks like, but we start talking about career and college in 7th grade up here for the students.
And at what point in time would you come up with an assessment, if you would, with regards to an individual student on what you thought their strengths were or abilities were and interests were, and what path you'd be trying to push them along or aid them along, not push them along, but aid them along with?
Yep. So in the past, we've used career cruising. Thank you. I was like, that's not what. Okay, career cruising. We're moving to a system called Naviance now. So once we get that in place, we would meet with students and starting in 7th grade to have them take those assessments and kind of see what their interests are. So it would probably be time-wise, we'd probably pull them in groups to do it rather than individually. If there's a student who really wanted individual, I am through task offering a career and college exploration time. So they can, I actually have a student tomorrow who's a 7th grader who wants to talk about career exploration with me. So we'll go through some of that individually with them. But we are offering it, it would be in groups and then individually if the students want to sign up for it.
Okay. With any individual student, sometimes they may have expectations of themselves that are unrealistic, or sometimes they're underselling themselves. But certainly, if somebody wanted to really aspire to some real high level of education, certainly if you wanted to go to an Ivy League school,
Yeah.
I'm not sure when you need to start that plan, but it's probably got to be at 7th grade, or certainly by the 9th grade. You're not going to all of a sudden come into that realization as a junior and say, I want to go to Harvard. I mean,
I mean, we have students who talk about at the 8th and 9th grade level that they want to attend those schools. Those students are usually the ones who are already pushing themselves anyway and coming to talk to us about, okay, what else can I be doing? You know, we have several 8th grade students who are taking high school classes for credits. So those, I mean, yeah, they're coming to us, those students, and talking to us about what it would look like.
Because obviously, I mean, if somebody really has that aspiration and they have that ability,
Yeah.
that they need to know early on what they really need to do.
Yep, so we have those conversations when they come to us.
And part of that is the counseling involved with the New Hampshire Scholars
Yeah.
track of having a more rigorous course of studies. Would start early.
Yeah.
So it's a segue into this. Do you see any particular courses that we need to add to this school? Steve has talked about earlier about some of our AP courses that we're looking at, but I guess I'll ask it again here. Any particular courses that we need to add that would be necessary for those strong achievers that they would need to be able to really succeed at what they're trying to do?
I think what we've added recently with our advanced chemistry, AP English, AP US History, college running side courses, statistics, pre-calc, calc, those are the courses that those high-end schools are looking for. I mean, when you have a student that wants to aspire to those places and are taking those courses and has the SAT scores to back them up, those schools will look at them. The last time we had a student with the SAT scores to back them up went to Dartmouth. You know, so it's not like our students can't achieve it if they're taking those courses and demonstrating the knowledge in the standardized assessments.
I mean, they tell me today that there are enough applicants at the 8 Ivy League schools that, they could just accept people that had perfect SATs.
Pretty much.
And which is,
They say College Board is going away, not for the high-end schools that are looking to separate, the better students from the student. There's a lot of students who come out of high school with straight A's who can demonstrate, on a state assessment, besides those straight A's, what we have. Which is why we're trying to pump up our SAT scores and workshops to get there.
one question that, and this is no reflection on anybody current, everybody staff, or even in this school in history, but one comment that you hear from students, and I'm always one to be talking to students, ones at UNH or whatever, just to, get a sense of what's going on and why. But a lot of students don't sense that they got the guidance, if you would, that they needed or should have had available to them. Whether that's reality or perception.
Yep.
I think we've all interacted with kids or whatever, we know what we were doing, and then all of a sudden say, well, so Mr. Kelly never did this with us.
Yep.
We did it every day, you just weren't paying attention,
Yep.
So but how do you respond, to that? Do you see that element in kids as far as them, grasping the program and understanding what they need to do on their end to participate and make it as beneficial for them as possible?
Yes and no. Like, when you sit all the seniors down and you say, okay, so this is what your senior year is going to look like, and this is what you need to do, and then half of them walk out and they're like, I have no clue what just happened. But then the other half is like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. But it's typical teenage development where they are zoned out and they don't pay attention, and but those are the ones that we try to target to be like, okay, so let's reaffirm what we're supposed to be doing here and check in with them.
And that's another segue. Okay, so do you, in somebody's either junior or senior year, is what Diana's saying here, but it could be starting in any year, but at least in those two particular years, do you try to actively have a face-to-face with each student to rattle the cage a little bit, just to make sure that we really know what we're going to do the next year or 2 years?
Well, when we settle for a senior schedule, it's with the junior specifically on what they've done, what they want to do, and where they think they want to go. And for me, it's not about what you want to do after the year after you get out of high school. Where do you picture yourself 6 years down the line, 8 years down the line? Where do you want to be at? And how do we get there the best way? Is it 4 years of college, 2 years of college, technical program, a 2+2. Where do you want to be? How much money do you want to owe? That has to be part of the conversation these days.
More so than ever,
If
obviously.
students are telling me, I'm thinking of going to college and then going to the military, is that the best track? Is vice versa? And for me, not being someone who is in that, I talk with people who have been. What is the best way? And it's an individual choice depending upon where they're at.
Not recently, but, let's say 10, 15, 20 years ago, I knew some young students who did very, very well in high school, probably got a fair amount of scholarships, senior night, et cetera, and went to college for a year and a half, maybe 2, and ended up not continuing just because they really had no financial plan for the rest of the time that they were there. And they either, didn't think that they were getting what they really needed, weren't 100% sure on the curriculum they had chosen, or whatever the case may be. But anyway, fortunately, a lot of them, ended up doing very, very well in life because they were bright and hardworking, and they still put all the tools together and made a career out of it. But obviously the finance part today has got to be huge. We're seeing it on the news all the time.
Mm-hmm.
That sticker, all of my kids and all of my money went to UNH.
Yeah.
But, that certainly is reality. And, Steve has talked about what we're trying to do at the high school level with regards to combining high school courses in the junior college program,
Yep.
just so you
Yep.
don't necessarily have to look at a 4-year, pay plan, if you would. So,
Yep.
We'll have seniors graduating this year with 6 college courses under their belt.
which is great.
Yep.
But,
So they get credit, when they already have those credits when they get to their university
Yep.
or college, and they
The
recognize.
first semester's out, beyond the first semester's already taken care
Nice.
of.
Yeah.
which is better than it used to. It used to be that you could opt out of some requirements, but you didn't necessarily get credit.
Right.
Yeah, the word credits, like to have those in place, so
Yeah.
that it really means something. Yeah. Okay, well, I think I've done my due diligence for Diane on that. If she asks any questions, please support
Okay.
my participation, but.
Got a question. On one of your areas on grading, you support teachers, et cetera. Can you talk a little bit more about what types of support that is and how it might relate to grade inflation? I mean, I think a lot of people on the outside, you hear a lot about how, everyone's getting A's now. And I'm not saying that might be the case in this district, but how do you combat that in relation to some of these professional development concerning grading and grade books?
So our support really revolves around making sure the teachers know how to effectively and adequately use their grade books. So it's making sure they set up their grading scales properly to make sure that we don't have inflated or underinflated grades. It's making sure they put in their assignments correctly so it connects to the grade that's supposed to show up. And making sure that when they go to verify their grades, that everything is properly done. So we've had some meetings after school where the teachers would go and we'd walk them through and make sure that their grade books are set up properly and that everything looks like it should. So we don't really, that's what we deal with on our end, because we are the ones who have been trained in how to use the information system and how to have the grade books set up.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I know in one of the district's initiatives in competency-based education is the assessment and reporting of it, and that has been huge. Caitlin, Mrs. Williams in guidance, and a couple of other staff members have done extensive training through professional development on the Power School and the use of it, and they are the gurus in the district that know how to make this thing fly. I will not say that I'm one of them.
Thank you.
Leslie, did you have a question or
That was
concern
it.
concerning the CBE?
I think the competency direction, and you've probably heard about that a little bit, but meeting the competency, the way they're defining those is really going to, I think, clarify, for parents and for students where they are. So I would think there wouldn't be any inflation, with that model.
In fact, if you looked at the first quarter report card for every student, 7 through 12, there are no A's. We're past it. There are no B's either.
Yes.
It's not like we're doing anything wrong, but it's just a whole different form, which parents, students, staff, everybody has really gone on an educational process of what this looks like now, because it is totally different. We've just got through the first quarter of that report.
Now, do you folks also get involved with tardiness issues or attendance issues, or is that handled by someone?
I'll get pulled
Or
in.
is that a problem?
Well, it is, but that's mostly administration and the safety officer. I'll get pulled in sometimes to have a meeting with the student if they've been absent a lot and the parent has expressed that the student is feeling anxious about coming to school, or there's a mental health piece to it. So that's when we usually get involved in those meetings.
Thank you.
One thing you mentioned earlier, and I rejoined, how many meetings or interactions with students would you have on a given day that weren't planned? Is there some emergency or impromptu, or not impromptu, but
I think,
or crisis meetings or whatever?
I don't know if I can give a number. I can give you a percentage, probably like, so in a given day, if I get pulled in, it's probably 90% of the time where like I don't have something scheduled and then I get pulled into something.
Okay, so there are things that come up on a daily basis that somebody says.
Yeah,
we need
that's
to-
the majority of what happened. Like,
Okay.
I have sometimes I have a set schedule, but most of the time I go in with nothing on my schedule in terms of like, I want to leave it open for students, and then things happen.
Because you'll know there'll be enough things that will occur on
Oh,
a
yeah.
daily basis that will fill it.
Yeah.
And obviously, it's good that the students know that you're going to be available.
And we actually employed a new program this year where the students through their email, or they can come into guidance, they can schedule a meeting with us that will pop up into our calendar. So we know, okay, the student wants to meet with us, which we've started that this year, and it's been very helpful. And the students know that when we're available, and how to get us and set up a meeting. So that's kind of streamlined our process as well in meeting with students.
I ask you the same question. What is your biggest challenge to your position?
Keeping up with what the rest of them know about competency-based education at the moment. Because it is definitely new, and what we need to know and to help our staff with, as far as the grade books and stuff, is a challenge. It's a lot.
And general question, in order for the services that you provide the students to be of a best value to them, I know you attend programs frequently. How frequently and what type of programs?
Are you talking about like conferences and
What things that
development, staff
that
development
you
for
do on
ourselves?
a periodic basis that gives value to your services, that you you're knowledgeable and you're experienced in what helps the students?
Yep. So every year they have a annual school counselor conference where every school counselor from the state is invited to attend. So they'll pick a hot topic of the year. So I don't know, you went this
This
year.
year was trauma.
This year was trauma. I think last year was trauma as well, because it's been a huge.
Okay, I might have missed that.
No, anxiety. It was around trauma anxiety. So there's a lot of things that come across our email in terms of like college board workshops or social emotional support workshops. So I know I try to attend at least 2 or 3 a year to make sure that I'm staying up on what's happening. But it's also hard balancing being out of the building as well. So I try 2 or 3 times
Yeah,
a year.
this year Caitlin's had to also add a couple of things that I would normally do and that she might not, since I'm leaving.
Any more questions?
So Jimmy, you being the most recent of us who actually went through this
Yeah.
system.
Put me on the spot.
The pressure's on, that's right.
Okay.
Any reflections from your,
No, provided a good foundation for, I went to Wentworth Institute in Boston, so I wanted to experience the city life. I went through most of the college prep classes here, and that prepared me for college. And I signed up for all the 8 o'clock courses.
Waking up early on Mission Hill.
Yeah, and so So yeah, I think the high school provided me with better than adequate education for what I was looking to do. So,
Excellent.
and part of it is the students have to be enthused with what they want to do too. So yeah.
And
Keeping
the-
them motivated, keeping them thinking, keeping them active, focused.
And the role of guidance, Jim,
Yeah.
back then, and the role of guidance, how you might think has evolved till today?
I'm not sure how it's today, but I think it was Borgard was my guidance counselor. So we had a meeting, what are you looking to do? We sat down and looked through some schools and applied to as many as I thought I could afford and went for it. So,
I think in my 4 years at Berlin High School, I saw the guidance counselor once.
yeah.
And I applied to schools that I didn't even know I had applied to.
Yeah, yeah,
That stuff was just kind of handled behind the scenes.
yeah,
And
yeah. No, it was good. It was good.
thought we'd throw in a couple of safety schools, right? Anyway.
Yep.
But obviously things have changed. We know that the challenges are new and different. And obviously it's nice to hear you talk about, obviously there's a recognition of, that the different pieces on the chessboard and what they used to be. But obviously we've had a lot of very successful kids go through the school. I mean, Jimmy and his brother, Jimmy went the college route. Joe went the tech route, if you would, became a proficient welder.
Yep.
But Wilson's, he does stuff that
Yeah.
you or I'd like to be able to do.
I can't even dream up. Yeah.
Yeah, so boy, you never want to discount talent. I mean,
No.
and you want to, I guess, nurturing it and creating a path for it to succeed. But, I've seen stuff come out of some people that I personally, for whatever reason, didn't think that they had a whole lot to offer, and
Yep.
they blew my socks off at some point in time, and I'm glad to admit it, because it's, but finding those things, I mean, obviously not everybody is,
Right.
pencil and paper and books, but, through our Voc Tech program, obviously, we're offering a lot of good things there, anyway, anything else, anybody?
Scholarships, Joe, how many dollars this last year?
Last year,
Thank you very much.
we went over 290, and when I started here, we were looking to break 100.
100 what?
$1,000 going to the scholarships for students.
Pushing 300,000, I know that
Yeah.
that's,
We're close.
last year, we have a very generous community.
Unfortunately, the price of college has probably matched that incremental increase. UNH is 32 before you have a grilled cheese sandwich.
Really?
Yes.
And not a short time, but a short time ago, it was 25.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, things are increasing also, but I think the community has really stepped up, and we have a lot of good participation, and we have a wonderful guidance secretary that coordinates the scholarship program and class night that just, and puts stuff like this together for us, and she just does a great job with it. So I think there's nothing but, the future's bright for our high school kids, between the college courses here and the scholarships available. Thank you, folks.
Thank you,
Thank
John.
you very much.
Very nice, thank you.
David Nicole. My athletic director.
Hi, thanks for having me. Sorry I don't have a fancy handout like the guidance department.
So
but,
Mr. Fagan was about ready to stand up. Some habits that
Ready to go up?
some habits die hard.
I say, come up, sit next to me. No, I appreciate the opportunity to come and give you a little bit of info about.
Sorry, your name?
Oh, sorry, yeah, I'm Dave Newfer. So the athletic director, I also teach PE here at Littleton High School. So, second year, yeah, that's right. One notch on the belt.
He moved a
ma'am.
short distance to get here, Steve. He moved a short distance to get here.
Which was?
Tell
Utah, out west.
You know, you're west of Colorado.
Yep.
We had Kansas and Utah.
Yeah. But no, I'm happy to be here, the opportunity to present a little bit of information about the athletic department. The athletic department is doing well here at Littleton. Our goal is to support the learning and growth of all the student athletes, or of all the students, to be honest. And so it's an opportunity for students to build character and to add on or enhance or implement the things that they learn in the classroom in different settings and in real world settings and in different kinds of situations. So as part of the culture and the community here, it offers those opportunities to students and allows the learning that happens in the classroom to expand, and so to be able to be put into other situations outside of the classroom. Just a little bit about our participation that we've had. Currently with winter sports, there's 83 high school students that are, I guess, on the rosters of the winter sports, and there's 46 middle school students. So the 83 high school students, that's about 32% of the total population, and the middle school is about 46% of that middle school population. So all in all, 7th to 12th grade, there's about 36% of the student population that are student athletes that are participating in some type of winter sport. And I apologize, I don't have the fall numbers from this past year, but it was more than that, and the fall sports house larger teams, and so there were more fall participants than there were with winter. We have had quite a bit of success lately. Both the boys and girls soccer teams went to the state tournament and competed well, represented our school really well. We had a boys golf team that went to the state tournament and they got 4th, and we had an individual student that took 2nd place as an individual golfer at the state tournament. We also finished the fall season. All of the athletic directors across the whole state do sportsmanship ratings, and so we will rate the other schools' sportsmanships, and it comes back as either exceptional, meets expectations, or below expectations, and then it's kind of a competition to see who can win the state tournament banner. And so Littleton finished the fall season without any negative sportsmanship ratings from other schools, and we had a number of positive ones, so we were in the positive side of that, so it was good. And then going back to last year, we had one state championship team, which was baseball. We just unveiled the state championship banner during the alumni basketball games, and so there were some community members there that came to witness that, and so it was a good event. And so there's been some good success as of late, yeah. Any questions? It's kind of just the basic info.
Do you also oversee the physical ed, the PE classes? I mean, does that fall under your purview?
I do teach about half-time. I'm a physical education teacher. I'm not the head of the department, but I do have a few PE and fitness classes, yeah.
So my question is probably you couldn't answer as far as what a typical phys ed hour looks like. So that may not be what you could answer, and I understand that. You know, when I went to school, you got your gym clothes on and you hit the floor, or you were doing some all the time and you came back. It was constant activity. So I don't know if that's the way it is today or not, and you may not be able to answer that. But I won't say this. I think it's a pretty high percentage of participation for your athletics, don't you, Steve?
Thank you.
Although obviously, interesting, you know, if you look at the prep school formula, their goal is to have 100%.
Yeah.
They do that, in fact, that's one of Diane's comments, I'll get the list after, but, you know, is that, and, you know, that, this is kind of going to the bottom of the list, but that, you know, that kids who participate in athletics seem to have better developmental experiences, both educationally and socially, than kids who don't. Not that there aren't exceptions, but
Right.
that's a comment that she's making, and I think we've probably all seen that to some degree, that, it's not that all kids who play sports end up being great students, but, the stuff that comes out in sports sometime, that, some negative activity or whatever that comes out in sports, that's a good place to address it, is during practice and whatever else, even sometimes during games, and that personal development because of those things, actually obviously produces a better person on the far end.
We do offer in the fall intramural activities for middle school students. And so there's a group of kids that are able to compete against their peers. They don't compete against other schools, but they compete against their peers that otherwise wouldn't have that opportunity because of the limits on sports teams. And so they don't compete on the sports teams, but they do the intramurals, which is a good activity for them.
Well participating?
Yeah, there was, I'd have to ask Mr. Lombardi to get the exact numbers, but there was quite a few middle school students that did that. I would estimate near 25.
Are the physical education classes a requirement for graduation?
Yes. Yeah, the New Hampshire, state of New Hampshire requires, I believe it's 1 full credit.
Which is a full year.
Correct, yeah.
Getting back to Mel's question, though, I mean, you do enough of this. What is, so that full year of phys ed, or phi ed, as they would say in the Midwest? What do they say in Utah?
Just PE, phys ed, yeah.
Anyway, but, what comprises that year of phys ed?
So, for high school, there's primarily 2 classes that are offered, a fitness class and a PE class. PE class is your standard run-of-the-mill, every school across the nation. Get in, learn some movement skills, build on the things that they hopefully learned in elementary school and middle school, introduce them to lots of different activities, whether it's indoors or outdoors, sports games, rec games, and help to instill in them character building lessons or things that they learn to be a better person, as well as lifelong health habits. And so the fitness class then, so the PE class is typically in the weight room and outside. Fitness class will typically be in the weight room with some gym time as well and some outdoor time as well. So it's kind of a mixture.
David, is there any, and maybe this isn't in your area, but is there any component to nutrition and in terms of, healthy eating habits and, that typically you think go along with, exercise and lifelong health and do you get involved in any way, shape, or form in that area?
There is, yeah, there's a little bit. This year with the new competencies, we have 14 indicators on 3 competencies in PE that we grade them on, and 2 of those deal with nutrition, 2 of those 14. Yeah.
Thank you.
I've asked Joe and Caitlin, I'm going to ask you, David, what's your biggest challenge in your position?
The biggest challenge in my position is, and maybe challenge isn't the right word, but frustration, is being able to get quality coaches, get coaches that are good with the kids and good for the kids.
Match.
Yep. We have a lot of good coaches, a lot of awesome, great coaches, that hopefully will be coaching here for decades to come. But there are quite a few holes that would be good to be filled with good coaches, particularly in the middle school level.
At one time, when I was in school, virtually every coach, and maybe every coach, was a teacher. That's obviously not the case anymore. It hasn't been for a long time. The reason for that and the benefit, or that would help?
I don't know. Yeah. Everywhere across the country is probably going to have different reasons why they have coaches that are teachers in the building versus coaches that are coming from outside. But I don't know.
It's a bit of a different dynamic. You know, one time, I mean, obviously, we've had a history of a lot of very good teachers here who were coaches, and both guys and girls, but Ron Bartholomew and Howie Burgess and, you know, Linda Boulay, and, you know, Pierre Lafitte, and whatever. And of course, when you're a teacher, you're seeing those kids every day, all day, as opposed to somebody who comes in and coaches basketball in the evening. All hell could have broken loose during the day, and he or she shows up at 4 o'clock, and, you know, obviously that wouldn't have happened, you know, with Ron Bartholomew. He would have had his thumb on that long before it ever got to that situation. So I think there's something, there's a bit of a disconnect, not that there could be a positive side to it also, but that certainly has changed. But as a national rule, if you would, are there less teachers coaching now, or more coaches coming from the outside, so to speak, or is that just more here in Littleton, or?
No, I think it's across the board. You know, I haven't been doing this a real long time, so I don't have, you know, a lot of, I don't have anything as far as how to base it in the past, you know, but I would say that's a fair assessment that it used to be more teachers were coaches in the back in the day.
For what it's worth, the coaches that I mentioned taught my wife, so that's going back a fair distance. I'm not trying to be unfair, but anyway. But, you know, I mean, obviously, I think we've had a lot of very good coaches, both inside and outside, and you know, having a good coach can make a huge difference. And we're not talking about winning and losing. We're talking about a better kid coming out of the program than entered the program.
Yeah.
Couple of questions. The scholarship money you were talking about, $290,000, how much of that is athletical?
None.
I don't know.
I think it's zero.
Zero?
Yeah.
So we have zero athletes
Maybe $500.
earning scholarships? Okay.
Yeah, all right, so you have the Tommy Walker.
That's money, that's local.
I'm talking about the
Yeah.
$290,000 scholarship.
Yeah.
How much of that is athletical?
There's about $1,000.
That's just college. Oh, that's just college,
There's
you
about
said.
$1,000.
So we get $1,000 of scholarships.
They're both memorial scholarships from former students.
Okay. And over the 10 years, how many professional athletes are out there from Littleton High School?
From the last 10?
Yeah, last 10 years.
Zero.
Zero.
Rich Gale is the last one.
And the other thing is, could someone send Diane a list of all the sports programs that the Littleton High School competes in that are supported by the school, and then she could send that out to the rest of us? I'd like to see all the different sports programs that are participating.
I think it's on the handout that that trifold that I gave you.
Yeah?
Yes.
It's on there with
All
our
right, that's good.
co-curriculars too.
Was that that was the first week, right?
It was the second week. That is it. Yep, it's right on that.
Okay, so it outlines all the athletic programs that
Check
support
it
it.
to make sure, but I'm pretty sure our co-curricular offerings.
Because I know you just got a new one on it.
Yep,
I just
Bass
know you
fishing's
just
on
got a new one in bass
bass
fishing.
fishing's on there.
So,
Co-ed bass fishing.
okay, all right,
Yeah.
good.
The NHIAA website also will give you a listing of all the schools in the state, as well as Littleton with all the sport offerings. Quite extensive.
Okay, all right. Okay.
So for the viewers, how does one become a coach if they're interested?
So
Peer-based, I guess.
we post all the district will post the openings on School Spring, and I believe it shows up on the website as well. Okay, and so they can link to it from the website. Yep.
Diane left me a list for you all.
Let's have it.
And rather, some simple questions to ask, but, so the range of grades you oversee is?
For the athletics or for
Yeah.
teaching?
Athletics.
7 through 12.
Okay, you schedule all the middle school games and all the high
Correct.
school games.
And some of the sixth graders will play up to fill spots.
Okay.
So
Now, in the grammar school, we already kind of got some of this from the rec department. So the role of the rec department in athletics in elementary school, are they the ones that are responsible for that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's their domain, and they do a pretty good
Littleton
job.
Youth Soccer is a separate organization.
Yeah.
But they do the basketball and the after-school program.
Yeah, okay. And I think doing well and probably getting better, because they have, some new,
They started as early as kindergarten,
yeah,
so that's new.
which is
A
good.
little more chaotic at that level, but.
Okay. Non-athletic endeavors, art, music, who oversees that? How is that done? for kids?
So, I believe Ms. Carbino does.
Yeah.
Administration.
Administration, okay. So they just want to know for the kids who aren't, either don't perceive themselves as being athletic or.
Yeah, we have a large participation of students that are involved in student council. So right now, there's about 26 middle schoolers that are actively participating in our middle school student council. And there's about 18 to 20 in our high school student council. We have, for the first time this year, thanks to the board, we're developing a Tri-M. So we've got National Honor Society, which has about 27 kids this year between our juniors and seniors. We'll have a Music Honor Society moving forward. So we're still working on our charter and the foundation for that honor society. We have youth leadership through Adventure, Yalta. Caitlin actually should have asked her to talk to that, but she's got 26 kids participating in that Yalta between middle school and high school, and it's really the leadership skills. They go to regional workshops and state conferences and develop their leadership skills, and then bring back programming to the rest of our school community. We have, for the first time in several years, Granite State Challenge Group. That, you remember Granite State Challenge on TV? Well, our students passed their assessment and are moving forward and going to progress into the televised competition. So they were really excited after the last. So one of our newer teachers, Mr. Denny, is supporting that. So when you talk about the coaches, teacher coaches, all of our co-curricular that are not athletic are supported by our teachers. We've got youth in government. We continue that program. Mr. Lafitte was involved in that for many years, and now we've got.
Is that still YMCA youth in government, or is that?
Yeah, it is. It is. So we still send.
I'll spare you the story.
Drama is huge. If you were at our drama performance this past fall, I think there were 60 kids through the elementary school and high school involved in that. It's a very strong program. And we've got, of course, FBLA, HOSA, and Future Educators of America, or Educators Rising now. Those are still offerings that the kids take advantage of.
So you throw
all those in.
Percentages together, we've got.
And I should have thrown those percentages together, but I'm looking over
Almost
60,
everybody.
70%.
Yeah.
When you add some of the other clubs that we offer during our task time that we don't formalize in our co-curriculars, those numbers are pretty strong.
Yeah, because that was Diane's final point was, as
When you
all those
combine
type of
all.
extracurricular involvements tend to.
Yep, it kind of the net for everybody. There are a population of students, as hard as we've tried to draw them in, it's still a challenge to draw. Not that we've stopped trying, it's just finding the right draw for them. Something I'm working on.
And that's a segue to, has there been a student survey? Question number 6.
There's been student surveys. We've specifically tasks, when we established our task times, or task opportunities, looking at what they're looking for.
Yeah, what was the specifically surveys about what they like
Well, yeah,
offering?
I think so, yes. What they
When you
were-
think of some of the things we've added a music honor society, student-driven and teacher-driven. We added the bass fishing for the first time this year, student-driven. So you've got, our students are learning their voice. They haven't always, their voices haven't always raised to the surface, but they're being heard, and I think they're appreciating it. And as we develop their leadership skills, you'll see more opportunities that meet some of their needs.
But both the societal voice and their actual voice.
Yes, right.
Yeah, so, I mean,
Exactly.
me not having been gifted with musical talent, skipped several generations in our family, but, you know, I've known some kids who were very talented musically and vocally, and I really was kind of disappointed that they didn't, you know,
Continue on.
well,
with it,
continue,
yeah.
or, you know, and I know this is, I don't want to misspeak here or whatever, but some of them didn't think they were as good or had the potential that at least I thought they had.
Yeah. They didn't have the confidence.
Yeah, the confidence,
Yeah.
that's right. So, and how that balance comes together, I'm not sure, but you certainly like to see them, you know, if you've got it, let's use
Yeah,
it.
exactly.
I've seen some interesting things done at, you know, at the concert nights or whatever that you have
Yes.
here. I mean,
And we have our choral group going down to the senior center, I think it's the 10th of December, to entertain them during the task time and the period before that, their choral period. So we try to share our talents with everybody.
You touched on something I think is important. About 70% of the students now participate in something. So 30%, you're still trying to figure out how they fit in, and vice versa.
Yeah.
And it's those 30%, I think, are just as important as the others.
Absolutely.
And it is a talent. I mean, I don't know how you do it, but considering the things that we've talked about here at school the last few months, having those students feel belong as a group and participate in things, I think is a great thing that
It
I
is,
encourage you to continue what you're doing. And
Some of the task offerings, we've got gamers groups and so forth. We're creating those communities within our school that share those interests and talents, and they're feeling that acceptance.
it may be a surprise to you as to, well, hey, look at these number of
Exactly.
students who like this. And, yeah.
We have a new class this year, it's media and journalism. So we're putting out like a electronic newspaper. But some of the students that have come to interview me, to interview other people, are really stepping outside their comfort zone, community members, and feeling that value. Their words and their thoughts are now the kids' words and thoughts, and that empowering and that confidence building and that validating their voice is very important as we continue to shift our culture.
The little online newsletter the kids are doing is pretty awesome. There was an article in there when, imagine this, they had an opinion about the quality of food service. Some of the kids never speak about, but I think, again, and this is not to, you know, they weren't happy with it. I think, you know, that has some implication. An article about a student that, maybe we shouldn't be promoting students growing hops, but there is a student that's a hop farmer here, and that's a very interesting thing as well. That was in that little online newsletter, if you will.
Future hop consumers.
No.
So I think that, that's a little niche unto its own. But I think you're right, Mel. Every school I've ever been around, particularly when I was a principal, that was a real challenge. We found a lot of people. We found a lot of kids. I never knew how many kids love gaming. So, you know, that's a big deal. And it's not just when they start doing at least sometimes a computer programming interest and media interest. So it's a different curriculum than it used to be.
Well, along those lines, recently a lot of the talk amongst athletic directors across the nation is esports. And it won't be too many years before every state is going to have esports is a sanctioned athletic event like baseball or
Interesting.
basketball.
Hey, I wondered if you were talking, how many kids are, you probably don't know the number, but I'm assuming there's some kids who are going to jobs after school.
Yes.
And
I don't have that
And on
percentage.
the weekends, you know, and I think, and Steve really touched upon it a lot, and I think it's just the cost of college. And I know there are students who don't go to St. Paul's because they can't give up 6 weeks of their summer of earnings, you
Yes.
know?
Yeah.
But I bet there's a fair amount of students who are going to jobs after school, a couple days a week, and certainly on the weekends. And the athletic commitment, when you're in a strong program here, is pretty intense. And so, but some of these kids need to earn some money too, you know? So it's a big balance.
Yeah, it is.
So,
I've run across some kids, I'm sure Al has too, and you'll be playing softball senior softball with some guy or whatever, and say, did you play in high school? No, most would be baseball players in high
Right.
school, but no, I had a job,
Exactly.
and, oh yeah, that does occur. And
In Littleton, we have a lot of retail that will hire
Yeah.
high school students and need to, and with our unemployment rate so low, we've got a lot more students having those opportunities.
and there can be childcare issues too, where
Yes.
the older student has to go home to watch the younger student. I mean, there's just a lot that the high school kids have on their plate sometimes, a lot of responsibilities that I don't know if we always remember for certain families.
Yep, there is.
I have one last athletic question.
Okay.
Participation, you kind of hit on this a little bit. I mean, as far as allowing everybody the opportunity to play that wants to play, as far as, if in a given year, if you have too many kids come out for a certain team to be a manageable number for a coach, that means of addressing that.
Yeah. If there's too many kids, then cuts have to be made. Yeah.
And that's just it today. There's no alternatives to that.
No, not here. No.
And Steve, maybe I'll just kind of ask you some of the schools that you administered, would those have been considered private schools or?
Both,
Both.
private and public, yeah.
Well, it's not exclusively, but at least on the private side, with athletics, did everybody play a sport, or was that not part of the?
When I was in South America, everybody played soccer, whether they could or not. That wasn't an option. When I say everybody, probably 80% of the kids played soccer. We had parents who were professional soccer players themselves. So that was a little different climate with that. But we had particularly in Asuncion, we had a very strong arts community also. We had a number of students that were very involved in music, drama, those types of productions. So my schools in the U.S. That I worked at had very, very strong athletic programs, co-curricular programs and athletic programs. Yeah, and unfortunately, especially at the varsity level, the cuts tend to be a bit of a reality.
I think it's important to maybe talk about how many kids are getting cut. There's not a lot of kids that get cut
No.
a year, so maybe give an example of this year, the number of kids that may not have made a team.
Our fall sports, we had easily over 150 kids, 7 through 12, participating in sports. There were maybe 2 kids that were cut.
2?
Yeah,
Which
maybe.
is devastating for those two kids.
Right.
And particularly, so that's important to, when it's so few.
Right.
You know what I mean?
But
So,
what
I
I've
know
s-
you get that, but I mean, it really can change your entire school experience for the year when something like that occurs.
What I've seen typically is that from the coaches around here, first of all, there are rules of how many you can carry on a team when you play, I think, right? NHS?
There is for varsity,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah, for varsity. But what I've seen through all my years here, coaches who make a place for those kids who get cut, they're either a manager or they're part of that team somehow. Maybe they're not out there playing, but
Or they don't travel, maybe, they can still go to
Well,
practice
if
if they
they're-
don't travel.
yeah.
We let them
You know,
still
that's,
practice.
you know what I mean, yeah.
And some of that did happen
I've
this year.
seen that happen, which is
Yeah.
awesome.
It did happen this year, yeah.
It's good.
And
Yeah.
and sometimes the cuts aren't necessarily the coach's decision that's made, the student may end up not being academically eligible, and so
Yeah.
it's my decision or administrative decision that gets made that let's just sit this out, work on your grades this go round, type of thing.
One of the factors that we have to remember though is, these kids go through 4 years of high school, and then they go out on the streets and face the real world. And in the real world, there's gonna be cuts. People are gonna get cut. So the idea of having kids try out for a sport and not making it, that's devastating to that kid, yes, but that's also a fact of life that they're gonna have to face with for the rest of their life. And if they don't, if they're fit in to that team just because, then they haven't learned that lesson that life has to prepare them for. They still have to be ready for life.
And I appreciate that, Ralph. I guess, you know, in a different district where I worked, when the students transition to middle school, I watched this happen to several boys in my homeroom who were cut from the soccer team. There were only 3 of them cut. And they were cut, it wasn't just because of their abilities. One of them just had not started to grow yet in the 7th grade when you're starting middle school. I just, for me, that was, had such a negative impact on their academic year and their entire focus on school. And I get what you're saying, but I just don't think at that particular grade level that if they can be included, if they're not, I can see being cut from the team if you are causing the coach grief, if you're not cooperating with the team, if you're not, you know, being a contributor. But I don't think at that level, when you're starting your first experience at the middle school, that fall season, I don't know, for me, just watching that happen, it was very, very negative for these children, very negative. So I don't know that is useful at that age level, so.
And sometimes when you lose that kid, and, you know, we've had challenges filling teams. And sometimes if you lose that kid as a 7th or 8th grader, you might actually need him as a junior. And sometimes they get recruited back, but that can be an uphill battle. But, you know, I mean, always Al and I were always lucky enough in hockey that you could always tire them out one way or the other. and I had some years where I couldn't dress more than 20 kids for a game, and I had to kind of rotate 4 or 5 of them in and out, and I scheduled a few extra games just so that we could do that. But yes, that certainly is a sentiment. You know, and yeah, you have those late developers, and you know, I had I don't think you'd mind me using his name, but Peter Belmore years ago. Peter Peter was a good little skater, and I kept recruiting him for hockey, but Peter wanted to be a basketball player, and Peter was not very tall. So anyway, I can't remember how it all went through, but I was never successful in getting him to recruit him to play hockey. After he graduated from high school, he came back to the store to get something, because his family were all customers of mine. Peter came back to the store. I said, Peter, what happened?
Yeah, he's big.
He grew 6 inches after he graduated from high school. I mean, it just, you know, some of things you kind of chuckle about or whatever, but I was trying to give him an alternative, that's for sure. And Steve, one other short little story. I show up at the Holderness School to referee a junior varsity hockey game one year. And they're out there warming up, and they got these 3 kids that they look like, you know, stick kids or whatever. They're like 6'3" or whatever, could barely skate, look like novices. And I said to the coach, where'd those kids come from? He says, they didn't make the basketball team. But they had to, that was their program, they had to do something. You know, maybe they could have done music or dance or something else, but they were going to play a winter sport, and if they weren't going to be, it wasn't going to be basketball, it was going to be something else. And by the end of the year, they were pretty good. You know, they were athletic, and they learned to put it together. But.
Steve, to answer your question from Diane, either the Brookings Institute did a survey on how many, the percentage of teachers nationwide that also coach, and in 1915, it was 1915.
Don't take me back that far.
In 2015, it was about 50% among academic teachers for the 4 English, science, math, and social studies. It averaged about 50%.
And was that up or down from?
It doesn't say.
Didn't say that.
It didn't say.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks, good to meet you guys.
I guess. Last legislative session, somewhere on the order of 8 or 10 bills that were proposed to modify, redefine, calibrate, or do away with the default budget. What actually came out of legislation, we're pretty much okay with. Apparently not everyone, not all the SB2, either districts or towns, have spent time explaining the default budget. We have here, so that's not a change for us. Apparently, those who have explained haven't exactly gone through the line by line, and these are what the changes are. There hasn't necessarily been discussion at hearings or default meetings, but again, that doesn't seem to have been a problem with our history. So those changes didn't affect us. What we are potentially affected by is some of the recharacterization. The default budget still is the last budget that you approved, modified by legislative changes or contractual changes, eliminating one-time appropriations, and all the things that it always has been. Except, not affected this year, but the emphasis now really is the last amount approved. So in the last year's warrant, you approved a support staff agreement, which included an amount for retirement system and an amount for health insurance changes. In the second year of that agreement, which was also on the warrant, was just the wage increases and the related FICA and retirement. There was no health insurance changes in that warrant for the second year. Traditionally, in the default budget, since we do have health insurance defined in the contract, and as a matter of course, all our full-time employees are eligible for health insurance and other benefits, we have included the estimated increase for those insurances in the default budget as a contracted item. With the legislative changes, that won't be the case any longer. For those items that weren't specifically included in the warrant article, you'll be seeing the last amount approved. Regardless of the year.
Sir. This goes a step, again, it's not a major issue for us at this time.
Yeah, but in a given year.
But we have a school bus contract that we've had increases over the last number of years. This year, we're at the end, there's no new agreement, so that agreement wouldn't be in the default anyway. But previously, we've shown the 1.5% or 2.5% increase in our contract in the default budget.
Okay, so why would it not be in the default now?
Because the legislation says last amount approved.
Okay, but
if I bring it to you on a warrant article and I lay out all 5 years, and you approve the warrant article, then those are the amounts approved.
But we didn't approve it in that fashion.
But leases and things like that, we've done in the operating budget with a non-appropriation clause, so we satisfied the Municipal Budget Act and all that good stuff. But the amounts that were in last year's operating budget are what you approved, not the amount that was in the contract for the next year.
And Karen is telling us the same thing.
So that's...
They need to be voted on specifically in their full run-out.
So the potential problem, we don't have a problem this year. The potential problem is in years past, I've brought you
a guaranteed maximum rate increase of 14% on the health trust plans. And we had included those amounts in the default budget. Those amounts would still be in the proposed operating budget, but they would no longer be in the default budget.
But stuff that we normally vote on as a warrant article, like a teacher's contract, if we have it, or a support staff contract.
Well, again,
whatever.
the second year of
Yeah.
the support staff agreement is included in the default.
Yeah, because we voted on it.
Because you voted on that.
Right. With the detail.
Yes. So it's a new way of life. There are a lot of people that are having trouble across the state. Not everyone is happy. Apparently, there already is a move in the new legislator to go back and revisit some of the items and try to clarify again.
Probably some of the people are unhappy, or some of the people who voted for it, who didn't know that they were voting
Yes,
for that.
yes.
Which typically happens.
That wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah. So, but it might change our strategy. I mean, when you have a bus contract, we may actually present it as a warrant article? Or then you have
It could.
It could, but then you have to think of the
could.
pros and cons of doing it that way.
Another strategy that has been proposed is to look at your total cost over a 5-year agreement or whatever it is, and front load the increase. And basically level it
Yeah.
to the average for each of the years, so that the amount you approve in the operating budget the first year is the amount that we can live with for subsequent years.
But then you somehow would have to escrow funds as you go along, so
Well,
that you'd have them available for the 5th year.
Nothing is a perfect solution,
No,
yes,
no.
but those, and that's not necessarily the appropriate way to do it either.
Yeah.
But that's just some of the suggestions that have been bantered about.
He who legislates least legislates best.
And at least one of the individuals on the committee was quoted as saying, where I was taught by you and some of the other folks that the purpose of the default budget was so we were able to operate if the operating budget wasn't approved. And there are at least some who spend time in Concord who said, no, the purpose of the default budget is to cut taxes. So that's why some of the changes that we would typically see are no longer going to be in the default. This time. Next year could be an entirely different story. So what we did include, the first column shows the voted appropriation, which includes everything that was on the warrant, operating budget and the support staff article, the capital reserve fund articles, everything that passed. And at the bottom of that, the MS-22 is the form that we submit to the state to show the total amounts appropriated at the meeting. We have bonds that are always in our budget, and they've always been in the default budget. Capital expenditures under that category are reflected in the default budget. In this case, as certainly you're all aware, we saw it in the operating budget, the amounts of interest that we anticipate for next year are less than the amounts we have in the budget for this year. So I've taken a reduction of $56,000 into the default budget to recognize the change in bond payments.
Yeah, because that bond was voted on.
Yes,
As a separate.
that's the 2002 bond, it's the CTC bond.
Yeah, it was voted on, that's why
Yes.
that, so whatever the terms of the bond were, the terms that you reflect.
Yes. The next column, by contract, you approved a 2-year support staff agreement last year. So without regard to additional people or fewer people or changes in their classification or changes in any other certifications or anything they may have earned, we're including the same numbers that were on the warrant for year 2 that you approved. Every other year, the retirement system rates are reviewed, and This is by law now, the mandatory rates for the next 2 years are reflected in the default budget here, showing a almost $25,000 increase against the amounts that were in the approved budget for this year, just changing the rates. So again, no recognition of headcount changes, no recognition of increase in payrolls that may have automatically calculated a higher amount. It's the amounts that you approved last year adjusted for the change in rates.
And that's, you have here, that's by law.
Yes.
Because that supersedes whatever the...
That's one of the stipulations in what is a default budget. And then we had, the only special warrant articles we had are also one-time appropriations. I typically have removed the capital reserve funds from the default budget because although you approved them, they were with last year's monies, so they have no impact on next year unless you approve them again as a special article. So with all those adjustments, that brings our default budget to $16,314,055. And no, I did not go back and calculate what it might have been otherwise, but this is the new method. Certainly, default budgets have been and will continue to be open for discussion at the hearings or deliberative sessions. As in the past, under the current legislation, only the board determines what the ultimate default budget is.
Beyond that, it'd be somebody actually...
Well, if you had a significant amount of discussion as whether this should be included or that shouldn't be included, or you think it should just be arbitrarily changed, it's still up to the board to say, this is the default budget.
And the only thing that would prove it differently would somebody'd have to take it to court.
Yeah. And that probably wouldn't be timely.
Nor advisable.
What's, on this default budget, this is the last budget I got, because I'm sorry I wasn't here last week. And your proposed budget is 15,441.
That's just general fund.
Okay, what's missing?
Okay,
What
so
does this one have extra?
You've got $30,000 of food service.
Okay,
You've got $650,000 of special revenues. That's the grant funds.
okay,
Okay. And the capital reserve funds
Okay,
aren't
so-
included in the general fund.
so if we took those fund transfers out, then that is where the line would total up to match this. Okay.
Other questions? If anyone is interested, I'd be glad to leave at least one group of attorneys' interpretation.
I thought you were going to offer your work papers.
They're available. In that regard, it's actually become much easier. So I don't have to do as much estimating and everything else, but-
Extrapolation.
But it's a bit scary if we're looking at significant increases that we can't include. Potentially, those increases could sink an operating budget and wouldn't be in the default budget to back it up. Could be interesting times. Sir? Tom, say again why the legislature, what they say about the default budget. It is because, what's their purpose now? At least some felt it was to cut taxes. Okay. When SB2s went in, I guess we were in traditionally a period of growth. And from their perspective, the default budget was a hold steady, rather than all the increases and everything else.
Where ours is just a backstop in order to operate.
Or, yes.
Yeah. Although, I mean, you go back to the beginning, I mean, when the Senate Bill 2 first came out, which, you know, with people with the right intentions or whatever, that they wanted to have more participation instead of just the 300 or 400 or 500 people that show up in the gym. Well, the result has been that you have less people showing up in the gym. but the people in the gym are what determine what the voters actually get to vote on voting day, which was not necessarily well explained or maybe even foreseen. But the initial year, there was no default budget. So then what happened in towns where the budget didn't get passed, which under the old format, you would never leave the gym without, or this room, without having a budget. So that's how they had to come up with the default budget, was so that if it didn't pass, that there was a fallback position.
Right.
But truthfully, ever since that was instituted, and we in Littleton have had some discussions about that, what was not included in the default budget has been a little bit loosey-goosey, both on the school side and on the town side. So I think this is a response to somebody trying to define it a little bit better.
There have been court cases throughout the state over the years.
That's right, and then when you define it better, then obviously you can sometimes create some other issues.
Yes.
We have not historically, I think we've pretty much done it, what we, at least as that community, thought was the right way to do it. And if we had, yes, we had a contract, a bus contract for 3 years, even though it wasn't voted on separately, we included the second year of the contract in the default budget. And we thought we were doing the right thing.
You helped me honor the contract.
Yeah, that's right, exactly. So anyway, it's, like you said, maybe subject to review. Thank you for putting that together, John. I'm sure it was a labor of love.
Any other questions?
A continuing comment of how impressed I am with the presentations from the different departments the school has. I'm quite proud of all of that.
So are we. I am.
Look at you, Jim. You being the most recent graduate in the room.
That's right. 20 years ago.
20 years.
It seems like yesterday.
Oh, he's younger than me.
You should have seen him in his first hockey practice. I never thought he was going to make it. And his brother was worse.
Yeah.
He thought it was bowling.
Jim, you don't have to put up with this.
That's right.
You really can cut him off.
I was a senior on the JV team too, so
Oh.
There you go.
Okay, go ahead,
But
Steve. No.
it was a good experience.
All right, are we done?
Came out very well.
In the meeting we held last night with the Lakeway, we wanted to kind of formalize, and I was hoping Diane would be here, the actual date that the school has to have warrant articles submitted to the town. Okay? And I got this one here, which is the state requirements, and I'm not sure, I don't have that list that the town gave us, but the state requirement is January 28th. Last date of post-warrant budget and default budget, schools in town. Is that correct? Is that in somebody else's mind?
We have it, we've been given it, I'll pull it up on the computer here too, but.
Yeah, that's the one, that's for articles
Yeah,
by the
so-
town
it's the
and by
same.
the school.
Right.
And the one for petition warrant.
Petition or
articles is
earlier?
earlier.
Right, right, okay. So that is our deadline for making sure that we have warrant articles presented to the town.
With the, you have to consider if you're looking for a finance agreement, whether it's a multiple-year loan or an
Or
actual
bond.
bond.
Those are earlier.
Then you have a bond hearing that has to be held earlier.
Right, okay, okay. So, okay. Good, thank you.
Welcome. Sounds like that concludes our meeting.
We thank you very much.
Now, how many more meetings do we have left? 2 with the school?
I think just the one that you were, Steve, you were going to arrange with Andrew once you thought you had all your numbers together and.
Yeah, and I think we would like to talk about Lakeway with the budget committee.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you'd like to have us for another meeting, that's certainly.
If that's agreeable to everybody.
Oh, yeah.
We talked about trying to do it with one of these, and I even thought about doing it tonight, but it's a big, it kind of needs to stand on its own.
Yeah.
And we have different people that'll be involved with that from the Lakeway Facilities Advisory Committee. Ralph is the chair of that committee, by the way, so he's done a magnificent job with that. So, yeah, I think we'll probably need to look for a date to do that, for sure. And then I know there's going to be some others of various forms going forward as well.
Well, whatever you need from us, but
Perfect.
the only thing I guess that we were expecting was that you and Andrew would at some point in time arrange to have a meeting.
Yeah,
so
that
we
would
can
be
at least,
good as well.
if we can pull the gross numbers together, so at least
Yeah.
we have a sense of
Absolutely.
the final product is.
Yep.
Tax bills came out today.
Yes.
They did. I got mine.
I didn't even open it.
And they're due 2 days after Christmas.
They are.
Ho, ho, ho.
That's the Grinch.
That's
That's right.
December 22nd.
Is that when they do it?
Okay.
Millie, if I could have filmed some of those early hockey practices, Angus McIver would have taken the.
Angus.
Do you remember Angus?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. And Carol, the turkey pie is.
Well, maybe we'll have to have a movie night sometime.
Yeah.
There you go.
There you go.
Oh, good.
Okay, I'll declare this meeting closed.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.